Okay, so we continue. We look at risk factors that are associated with ADH secretion. Risk factors or risk associated with ADH secretion. Now we look at when ADH is low, the risk associated with it, and then when ADH is also high, the risks that are associated with it. So we begin with the risk associated with low ADH. Now, in low ADH, the most common condition associated with low ADH secretion is the diabetes insipidus. Diabetes insipidus. We'll talk about diabetes insipidus shortly. Then another risk that is associated with it is, let me say, diabetes insipidus is excessive loss of fluid or loss of water through the kidney. That's diabetes insipidus. Now also, the primary polydipsia. Polydipsia has to do with increase or excessive thirst. You keep feeling thirst, you keep taking water, the individual keep, the thirst increases, the individual keep taking water. The another condition too that is associated with low ADH or low ADH secretion is the damage to the hypothalamus or pituitary gland. When there is a damage to the hypothalamus or a damage to the pituitary gland, it will affect ADH secretion. Then another one is the excessive loss of fluid through the kidney, which increases urine volume and then lowers blood pressure. All these are associated with low ADH secretion. Then we look at high ADH secretion. Now, when ADH is accumulated in blood circulation or is high, the symptoms you can find include headache, nausea, vomiting, and then sometimes you can have coma and seizures when it becomes very severe. Now, other things that can be associated with accumulation of ADH in the blood include brain cancer, bladder cancer, pancreatic cancer, lung cancer, blood cancer, and then maybe tuberculosis, epilepsy, cystic fibrosis. All these conditions, they are associated with high antidiuretic hormone. So that means when antidiuretic hormone is high in circulation, the further investigation should be done to be sure that all these conditions that I've listed not there, to rule them out. So in certain cancers, it can result in ADH accumulation. If there's cancer in the brain, it can result in ADH accumulation as well. Now, particularly the brain cancer, when it has to do with maybe cancer affecting the hypothalamus or the pituitary. You know, when you say cancer, you're talking about replication of cells. So maybe the cells that are responsible for secreting ADH, when they replicate, you now see that ADH is now being produced more than it normally will be produced because of increase in the number of cells that are there. So that's by the wayside. But the main focus now, when it has to do with these risk factors, is diabetes insipidus. So diabetes insipidus is what we're going to focus on now. And this is the most common disease that is associated with ADH secretion, diabetes insipidus. Now, that diabetes insipidus, like we said earlier, is the excessive loss of fluid, particularly water from the kidney. And diabetes insipidus are of two types or two major conditions that can cause diabetes insipidus. You have the hypothalamic diabetes insipidus, and then you have the nephrogenic diabetes insipidus. I said we have hypothalamic diabetes insipidus, and then we have the nephrogenic diabetes insipidus. The hypothalamic diabetes insipidus occurs as a result of a deficiency in the secretion of antidiuretic hormone from the posterior pituitary. Just as the name sounds, hypothalamic. That means the deficiency is as a result of the inability of the hypothalamus to produce ADH, or the inability of the posterior pituitary to secrete ADH. In any of the conditions, ADH is not being secreted, and so there is excessive loss of fluid. That is diabetes insipidus in the body. So that means that the 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 it's not that the kidney is not functioning well. The kidney is functioning well, but the challenge now is that the ADH is not available to trigger the collecting duct of the kidney to open up the water channels and allow fluid to be conserved. And so because of that, there's excessive loss of fluid from the from the kidney. Now, the other type is the nephrogenic diabetes insipidus. Now, this occurs as a result of the inability of the kidney to respond to the action of ADH. So, in this situation, it's not that ADH is not being secreted, ADH is secreted, but the challenge is that the kidney is not responding to the action of ADH. So, because the kidney is not responding to the action of ADH, water is being lost, the water channels are not being opened, water is lost in excess. And so when water is lost in excess, what happens? That is diabetes insipidus. Now, this most commonly results from maybe kidney disease. Probably the renal tubule is having issues. And so because of there's a damage or there's a disease of the renal tubule, and so the renal tubule has lost its functioning ability. So no matter what action ADH tried to trigger there, it will not respond because of the kidney disease. Also, another thing that can cause it is, ADH is a hormone, and normally hormone will act on receptors. So on that aquaporin, which is the water channels that is on the collecting duct, on the aquaporin, there are receptors. Now, if there's a mutation in the gene encoding for the receptor of the aquaporin, that when there's a mutation there, no matter how much the ADH tries to trigger that or try to combine with the receptor to trigger its action, because there's a mutation there, there will be no response. So ADH will be there, but there will be no response. So what it means is that in both situations, whether nephrogenic or hypothalamic, whatever it is, there is excessive water loss, which is diabetes insipidus. But in both situations, the circulating levels of ADH is different. Now, in hypothalamic diabetes insipidus, when you collect sample to determine the quantity of ADH in circulation, ADH will be low. ADH will be low in the presence of diabetes insipidus. But when there's nephrogenic diabetes insipidus, ADH will be high or normal. ADH will be high or normal, while there is diabetes insipidus, which is the excessive loss of water. So the major sign of um, diabetes insipidus is excessive urine production. And so individuals with diabetes insipidus can produce as much as 16 liters of water per day. And so, if water is available for consumption, the person keeps drinking water as he's losing water. It may not be very life-threatening. The only thing you can find is that there's increased test. There's increased test polydipsia, and the person keeps drinking water, but as he's drinking, he's losing. He'll keep drinking, he'll keep losing. But in the situation where water is not available, that's where it becomes a life-threatening situation, because the person will be thrown into dehydration, and when there's dehydration, there's cell shrinkage, there's all manner of conditions. There'll be headache, there'll be nausea, there'll be all manner of things affecting the individual. So diabetes insipidus can be treated, particularly the hypothalamic diabetes insipidus can be treated using exogenous administration of antidiuretic hormone. So when antidiuretic hormone is produced, is administered exogenously, the person the ADH can act on the kidney and the water will be conserved. Thank you.